Hello, welcome. Abir Ghattas to Digital Activism and New Media in the Middle East at UC Santa Barbara. And here are our students. Everybody say hello. Hello. Okay, great. So now you Ghattas to Digital Activism and New Media in the Middle East at UC Santa Barbara. And here are our students. Everybody say hello.
You're going to see all of this.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm just going to let that happen, and then you guys can go back later, but let's just use Cassandra's little laptop and get all nice and cozy. Abir, is that okay? Are you there? Okay, so that's okay with you. These are just material issues. I want to introduce you guys. I'm very, very, very happy to be able to introduce to you Abir, who comes to us from Marseille, France right now, but originally from Lebanon. So keep in mind, it's like 11:30 p.m. for her. Abir is a Lebanese activist, blogger, and a digital communication strategist with a focus on women's rights, freedom of speech, and digital security in the MENA region. She runs Global Voices Exchange, a Global Voices project, and is the outreach director for Majad. Abir holds a BS in computer science and a master's in communication and media studies. She is always on the internet and somewhere between Marseille and Beirut. So everybody say, welcome, Abir. So I wish you were in a bigger screen, but it's just this delay thing is going on. So I might just start this here.
But can you give me the live broadcast link now before we start?
Yeah. So the live broadcast link is here, and let me give you it in our chat. Okay. If you can like Facebook and tweet that, and you can put my name in there. That's fine. I heard my niece say something. Okay. All right, guys. So thanks for. Maybe it's nicer to be sort of like intimate, like this. So Abir, the students read about Harassmap and they did their writings on it. And what I thought, do we want to start with questions and let her answer these questions, or maybe you can take a few minutes and give us just give us like an You want to speak for a few minutes, Abir, and then take questions, or do you want to take questions first and then? How do you want to do it?
Let's take questions first.
Okay. Because you guys have read her work, and I saw all the blog posts, so I know you're familiar with her work. Yeah, don't jump up. Yeah, don't jump all at once. Spit it out. All right.
Okay, then I'll go on a rant. Oh, question.
Yes, there's two questions.
Just when exactly did you start Harassmap and start really thinking about
Speak loudly.
When exactly start Harassmap, and what really drove you? Obviously the sexual harassment, but what really drove you to start it?
Okay.
Okay, why don't you take two questions and then you can go from there.
Sure.
Hello, my question is there any progress I read part of the international benefits. Is there any progress towards expanding outside outside of Egypt?
Egypt, in Lebanon.
Lebanon, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll just talk a bit because there's a bit of So I did not start Harassmap. Awesome. So Harassmap was started by a group of 9 female Egyptian activists. It was a volunteer-based initiative, and then later on it partnered with other organizations and became an entity in itself. So this is the Egyptian context. There's not only Harassment, there's a few other initiatives and organizations that are working on sexual harassment and everything that goes with it, like policies, the laws, rectification, psychological help, social awareness, etc. And I'm just gonna also give a very quick introduction about the Lebanese context, where I am from. So the Lebanese context, other than we're Phoenicians, I'm kidding. So in Lebanon, there are not very few, there have been several campaigns towards raising awareness against sexual harassment, trying to change the laws. But in the past, so 2 hours ago, a new initiative was launched in Lebanon that is called Harass Tracker, which is somewhat a replica of the Harass Map module. So I'm saying this to tell you, before 2 hours ago, there was not really an initiative dedicated to fight sexual harassment in Lebanon. There were several mini projects from organizations such as Nasawiya, like Salwa, The Adventures of Salwa, where she was a cartoon character that was in several scenarios, and she was subject to sexual harassment, and how did she react. Other organizations such as CAFA, which is Enough Violence and something, they also did some legal work on trying to change the laws around women's rights in general. In Lebanon, there are no specific texts that criminalizes sexual harassment. This is something the new Harass Tracker group are trying to work on, along with other feminist organizations. There is Article 507 in the Lebanese Penal Code that criminalizes, the text says, anyone who exercises some kind of violence and threats that would lead to an immoral action. So this Article 507 criminalizes such a thing, but it doesn't uses the word sexual harassment or does any reference to it. Usually the work that is being done currently in Lebanon is on this article, the work that is being done on the policy level and the law rectification level is trying to change Article 507, make it more specific, and trying to remove Article 522, which is the most horrific article that says if someone sexually harasses and eventually rape a woman, if he accepts to take his responsibility, which equates to marrying her, he will go free. So, see, it's not an issue of catcalling or sexual harassment in the Lebanese or in the Egyptian case. It's a much bigger problem.
Abir, could you do us a favor and could you explain the Harass Map campaign in Egypt first, and to give a historical, just to do this historically, and then talk about the Harass Tracker that you and explain the difference and how they're, and maybe the relationships also, and then could you talk a little bit about like what's going on specifically in Lebanon and why Lebanon? Yani, and what's the difference between, I mean, I think it'd be very interesting to this comparison between what's going on in Lebanon and Egypt. And there's some of our students are doing a project on women to drive. So, you know, the idea of women's initiative, looking at what's going on in Lebanon, why are there so many digital campaigns for women's rights in Lebanon and fewer elsewhere? And So those are the couple questions that maybe that help frame. And I think that doing sort of a historical an explanation of harass map and harass tracker as a comparison would be helpful. That'd be helpful for me. Well, I'd love to see if you want to do any, you can share your screen too if you want to show us anything. Or if there's anything out yet.
So yeah, there's the website, which is harasstracker.org. Okay, so basically both websites are based on crowdsourcing data. Okay, so they are map-based and they crowdsource geographical data, and along with the stories that are tagged in the certain geographical location. Harass map, sorry. I mean, you've all saw the presentation, and I'm just going to open to it because, so it was launched in 2010, that's 6 years ago. And it has been going strong ever since. It was the first initiative in the Arab world that used crowdsourcing to collect data, and sensitive data, because which is sexual harassment. In Lebanon, harass map was all over Egypt. They were collecting information from all over Egypt. Currently, Harass Tracker is only collecting information from the Beirut region, which is the capital. I want just to tell you that Egypt size. Okay, so Lebanon is 10,000, approximately 11,000 kilometers square, like the size of Lebanon. Egypt is 1 million kilometers squares. We're 4 million population, they're about 82 million. So there is significant difference between any result that will be generated from, and of course we should take into consideration the internet penetration. It's 40% in Egypt and it's 70% in Lebanon. So any data, or like the quantity of data, of course, is not really comparable. Harass Map has successfully collected a huge amount of data that is not only geographical data, but also stories, and they were able to geographically analyze the relation between the demographic, the social landscape, and sexual harassment. And based on that, they were able to take their work to the offline level, which was from the interviews that I did with the co-founders of Harass Map, because my master's thesis was about them, on them, and other organizations. What was I saying? What was I saying?
You're saying
yeah, the data, the offline work. Never mind.
Yeah, the offline work. The important.
Yes. Yeah. So basically, the goal for Harass Map organizers and the project lead is not only remain online. They wanted to go on the streets, do awareness campaigns, because okay, for several reasons, but most of them is that there is this strong conviction that change would only come from offline action, which I, to a certain point, agree with. So what they did is that they collected information online, they analyzed it, and then they did on-the-ground research, and when the data matched, they said that, okay, now we can start doing our awareness campaigns on the ground. And that's what they did. They used to go in groups to, let's say, city A and city B, and then they would talk to small groups within city A and city B, but they are considered strangers or outsiders to the city or to the society. So they would eventually delegate someone from within the community to, if you want, continue their work. And that was the key to their success. So they weren't outsider coming from city X to say that, hey guys, the way you live is wrong, your population is full of harassers. Not at all. So delegates from the community started talking about the problem, trying to form other mini groups. So they started from, let's say, I don't know, a group of 10 streets, and then they would narrow it down so that, if you want, every street would have a committee that would be responsible for tracking, doing awareness. Even sometimes it went to extra level of effort, is that there would be groups of people that would actually survey roads to protect women from sexual harassment. HarassMap is a very, very successful model, and that's why the Lebanese, and that's why currently it is being replicated in Lebanon.
What makes it successful? What makes it successful? What makes it successful, do you think? I mean, you mentioned.
Yes. Okay. So there are a lot of. Okay. There's a lot of factors that makes HarassMap successful. First, in my opinion, that they managed to transform or to shift the conversation around sexual harassment. First of all, they managed to talk about sexual harassment. They managed to say that, yes, it exists, it is a problem, and it's not a mini problem. And then, like the Lebanese society, this is a topic that is somehow limited to the to the private sphere. By being a successful digital campaign, they got a lot of media attention, a lot of international and regional and local media attention, and the same happened in Lebanon also, and will happen, I guess, again with Harass Tracker. So with this media attention, sexual harassment is no longer something that belongs to the private sphere. It now belongs to the public sphere. People are talking about sexual harassment. People are talking about the people who are working against sexual harassment. They are considering the laws. So this is, I think, something that makes it very, very successful. They managed to collect a lot of testimonies, a lot of stories. They did a lot of awareness raising campaigns offline. So I think, in my opinion, it is a successful. Of course, and they managed to also work with other organizations to provide psychological help to those who came forward. So again, this is another good point for HarassMap.
I think that's really interesting. I think the point about the public and the private sphere is very well taken and well articulated.
Yeah. Thanks. And okay, and after HarassMap, I want to add that a lot of other campaigns came to see light, like امسك متحرش, like the mini committees that would go whenever there's a protest to protect the women. I mean, people started to take their own initiative against sexual harassment. But still, it is a very, very severe problem in Egypt. It is also in Lebanon. It is in most Arab countries, as of course it exists in where I live, in France. I've seen it in Germany. I've seen it everywhere. So it's good to not only always say it's a big Arab problem, sexual harassment. What else?
So tell us a little bit about the campaigns in Lebanon.
Okay.
And I'm very curious about, I mean, it's so interesting when I first started talking with Abir about digital campaigns, because I know she's worked on several, and on her own website she has the campaigns that she's worked on listed. And then, you know, we start talking about Women's Initiative, and like out of the 10 we discussed, like 7 of them are from Lebanon.
Yeah.
So I want to just sort of think through that carefully. You know, it's you know, what are the societal, structural, state policy, historical reasons for that? Could you speak a little bit to why Lebanon, and maybe talk a little bit about the various, yani, jeunesse, like all the different
yes, the different campaigns and why Lebanon. Okay.
Specifically digital activism. We're not talking about just activism. This is digital activism, right?
Okay.
So I think the point about the public and the private is important too.
All right. So we're sticking to the Lebanese context now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now let's talk.
Okay, so the Lebanese context is a bit special because we actually okay, so what's the time frame? We're talking post Arab Spring, right? Like 2011 till 2016. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Start 2010, Yachty. 2020, 2006, 7, 8. There was a turning point with a lot of things. So that's,
yeah. Okay. Sure. Yeah. So okay. As I said, Lebanon is a very special place because we how to put it nicely. We don't try our best to do much to change our current state. Our current state is a state that has been happening since our civil war ended. Okay, so let's say 1990, 1991 till now, Lebanon has been living in a
post-civil
in a post-civil war that really did not change from the current civil war, in a post-civil Cold War, where the people who are responsible for the war are now in the government and are the presidents, are the parliament, the speaker, etc. So it's somehow paradoxically like mind. Okay, so so there's this. On another level, we live in a country that women's rights are not. Women are second-class citizens. In Lebanon, women are second-class citizens. We have in our system all what can go wrong. We cannot give our nationalities to our children. We don't have really a civil code. Marriages and divorces are controlled by either the church or like by religion. There are no laws that protect against sexual harassment. There are no I mean, I think 7 years ago or 6 years ago, before that, women could not even open a bank account for their children. They needed the father's consent. The honor crime was abolished, I think, 4 years ago in Lebanon. And honor crimes is when someone from the family kills the woman, the daughter or the wife or a woman just to protect the honor. Sometimes men, but it's very few. So the one who killed the woman, let's say, if it's really an honor crime, he would serve like a month or 2 and then go free, if he serves at all. We cannot give our nationalities. I think again 2 years ago, if a woman has a child without a father, he would be he would be actually, he couldn't have been registered. He would have been called like what you guys call a bastard, Jon Snow. So voilà. So this is the thing. There is a lot of organization, non-governmental registered organization, that try to work to change, to do some change on the policy level. The two biggest campaigns that has been going strong still, without real change though, is the Jinsiyati campaign, which is, Jinsiyati means my nationality. That is a campaign that actually trying to change the law, which will allow the women to pass its nationality to their kids. So there's the Jinsiyati campaign. There is the Fight Domestic Violence, Anti-Domestic Violence campaign, because again, marital rape is not criminalized in Lebanon. So a husband can force himself rape his wife, and she can't do anything about it.
By the way, Trump said that that was okay too.
You guys, I feel sorry for you, but yeah, I mean, if Trump says it, then that's what will make America great again, I guess. But yeah, so yeah, we have 17 Trumps that believe that this is okay. So these are two big campaigns that are led and funded and exist offline more than online, but these are led by registered non-governmental organization, CAFA and CRTDA. However, there still is several grassroots groups and organizations, such as Nasawiya, which was known as the Feminist Collective, Emim, which is a queer group collective, Hilm for LGBT rights, Sawt al-Niswa, also another feminist group, and several others that took also part in these campaigns. However, they provided the digital aspect of it. They did a lot of online events, such as blogging day, hashtag day. We used to try and actually spread as much information as we have online. We first started by just writing blog posts, and then as data presentation changed, we started to produce infographics, motion graphics, videos, audios, and stuff like that. Now these groups, they managed to create an online buzz because they actually knew how to use the tools. They would actually know how to start a good Facebook campaign. They would know who they should reach out to, which trendsetter blogger they should talk to, etc. So they started, so this tiny sphere of friends, circle of friends, started to grow bit by bit over the past, I would say, 6-7 years. And we noticed, if you want, no, Leila, you say in Lebanon, we hear about it more than in Egypt. I think because, I don't know, if really everyone knows everyone in Lebanon. So if there is a campaign and everyone is talking about it, eventually everyone will talk about it. And it will move from being online to being offline in all kinds of ways. So take, for example, there has been several mini campaigns that are launched by the same groups, by Nasawiya, by Sawt al-Niswa, ila akhirih. These campaigns started using words and being so brave online, talking. We used to talk about everything. Sexual harassment, we used to call, I mean, screaming out loud sexual harassment. We would point to people and call them out as harassers, or we would name and shame, if you want, journalists that used to make sexual harassment jokes on their shows, politicians who would also, I don't know, like hit on other employees or say like comments that really they shouldn't say. So I think this was the difference, is that we allowed. So we have the illusion of democracy in Lebanon. So we can say whatever we want. Basically, it's not like with minimum risk. That's what there's a minimum risk. There is risk, but it's compared to Egypt, compared to Tunisia, compared to Syria, Bahrain, Iraq, any other country. We don't go to jail for speaking our mind, for maybe for like an hour or two, but that's it.
But that's fantastic, Abir. I think that's a very important point, is the freedom of speech. Okay,
yeah.
So Shayna has a question. Hold on a second. I'm going to do this so that you can get to meet these wonderful students. This is Shayna.
Hey. I'm just curious about if there are criticisms towards this crowdsourcing technology, just because I try to relate a lot of what I learned in this class to America and what we experience here, and the discussion of sexual assault on university campuses presently, and how the reason why universities don't acknowledge that they exist is for many reasons, but one of which is like they think that some percentage of people who come out are fraudulent. And I'm just curious to know, with a crowdsourcing technology where you're also anonymous, if there's like excessive criticism about potential like fraudulent like sexual assault cases or etc. If that's like a criticism.
Yeah. Very good question. Of course. So before addressing the issue of sexual
I'm giving you a different perspective. This is a different part of the group.
Okay. So before talking about sexual harassment, so online, if you're anonymous, you're not credible, which is normal, because in order to believe, we need to trust those who are providing us with information. So, of course, a tool that is based on crowdsourced data that anyone with a smartphone and internet connection can produce is of course an easy target to say, hey guys, how can I make sure that it's not you who are reporting, or how can you actually sift through all the reports and make sure it's true? I mean, I'm sure there has been, no one can say that, and the people of HarassMap said it, and I'm sure the people of HarassTracker will say it, and any other information that is crowdsourced. There is no way to make sure that all the information that you're submitting is 100% correct. But in the case of HarassMap, they were publicly pinning the data, the collected data. Okay, so, and it made sense there, and there was a how to say it, not predictability, but I mean there was a pattern to that, a logical pattern that actually looks like our idea of certain area. Yes, this is an area with high sexual harassment concentration. So the data would match to a certain point the on the field study. Okay. Now with these campaigns, the idea is somehow we want the aim, basically. I mean, how do you fight sexual harassment? You want to shift the discourse from actually around sexual harassment and sexual violence. It's not sexual harassment only if those who are sexually harassed say it is sexual harassment, right? Because, I mean, okay.
Then you couldn't have a legal, because then you couldn't have a legal standard. I mean, it would be based on individual experience.
No, because, I mean, no, I didn't get your question.
She's just thinking.
Me, who, or Layla? I didn't hear what Layla said.
Oh, and I'm sorry. I was saying that possibly, sorry. I was saying that possibly it's because of needing to standardize, maybe. Like, I mean, you couldn't take someone's, why legally can you take someone's word as, you need to have some sort of rules, right?
You cannot just go. I mean, are you asking how it is right now, legally?
Yeah, legally, on the books, legally.
There is no text that says this is sexual harassment. So yeah, there's no text that defines what sexual harassment is. But
does the state acknowledge that it happens then? So, for example, in America, there is laws that say you can't do this, you can't do that, and people go to jail for it, etc. But sometimes it's not acknowledged how often it happens. But does your state acknowledge that it exists, but they don't see it as wrong, or do they still not acknowledge that something something is going on with women in Lebanon? Did I make sense with that question?
Yes. Okay, so there's no text that says if I go to the police and tell him, hey, this dude sexually harassed me, he cannot open a book and find the definition of sexual harassment. Okay, I would actually need to report some kind of violence, like I need to show bruises. Verbal harassment is not sexual harassment, for example. But you all know it is sexual harassment. Flashing someone is not sexual harassment, for example, but it is. I don't know, like publicly masturbating in front of someone, that is sexual harassment. So what these tools are trying to do is not only what are they trying to do by collecting this information is not only to say, hey, there is sexual harassment. Of course there is sexual harassment, but they want to change the discourse around it. It's not sexual harassment. It's not. If the harasser didn't go into action and thinks it's okay, then it is not sexual harassment. So we grew up with the idea that if he didn't touch you, then it is okay. Oh, come on, why are you making a big fuss out of it? He's saying something nice. We hear that. We grow up with that. See? So this is what we're trying to do by sharing stories of these women, by collecting the information, by also raising some flags like, okay, if I have, take Harass Tracker, for example, they're just focusing on Beirut right now. But if I can determine a pattern that, okay, Friday night, Saturday night, reports on sexual harassment increase in this certain area, I would be very happy to share this information and make it very, very public. And even if I'm just basing myself on the reports of these women, and I would like to rephrase and remove the word even, because I am happy just to base my statement on those who were actually harassed, not what the harasser thought he did. Did I answer somehow your question?
Yeah, very well. Very good.
Oh.
Everyone's nodding their heads.
Okay, good. It's either really good or really bad.
Other questions? Let's take some questions.
Okay, here Cassandra has a question. This is her laptop. So thanks to Cassandra.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I know.
As far as the psychological help and counseling, how long after they report their abuse does that go on for? And do you guys have contact with these victims?
I didn't get the last sentence, but like how long after they report what? It got.
And what the contact with the victims are like?
Okay, so it is not. Again, just to make it somehow clear, it is not it's not mandatory. Like people decide to come forward and they voluntarily seek help, and by this help is just these organizations put them in touch with either a psychologist or another organization that does psychological support, for example. But it's not part of, if you want, the offering. Like it's not, we crowdsource your data and we send you to a shrink. No. But it should become somehow. But then that needs money, a lot of money, and people who are willing to do it, and actually victims who are willing to come forward and see the whole thing through. Because and I can speak from the people I know and from my close and not so close circle, there is a big percentage of women that I personally know that have experienced one kind of sexual violence in their life, a form, if not several forms of sexual violence in their life. Not everyone talk about it, not everyone come through, not everyone says, and of course they do not like seek psychological help for it, because it's just not in our system, right? I mean, seeking psychological help, then you must be crazy or something. So again, there's a lot of narrative to be changed around a lot of things, and it's not separate, right? It's being sexual. I mean, it's not separate. They are all like entangled all together in our society.
Okay, all right, this is Sanat taking you across the. Hi.
My is, so I just want to know, like, what are the statistics of women actually receiving or getting justice for being sexually harassed and raped? Because, like, I know in places in Egypt that, you know, women will usually tell their families or, you know, their fathers that they've been sexually harassed, and usually the fathers take these issues to court, and it's not really given or it's not really fought for the from the women's perspective. It's usually like the father views his daughter as damaged property, and then they're financially compensated for it. So I've heard many cases like this, and I think it's just, you know, incredibly crazy. But I just wanted to know, like, what are your thoughts on that, and then what is actually being done through all these digital, you know, campaigns that are happening for women to get justice? Has there been progress in that or no?
Okay.
The
Yeah.
guys.
Okay.
We all have to hear.
Yes. So, what? Good to go? Okay. So, again, basically the problem is there are no laws that criminalizes sexual harassment. There has, I think last year, there is a draft law in Egypt, and that is the fruit of all the work that all these campaigns have been doing. The digital campaigns are just a tiny chunk of all the work that has been done offline. And even though, again, I'm a big fan of digital campaigns, I've started tons and tons of, not tons, but I mean a lot of them. In Lebanon, in Egypt, in the Arab world mainly, being only a digital activist is somehow, saying that you're just a digital activist is not actually that wow of a thing, right? Of course, there's this whole glow that came after the Arab Spring. There are these heroes that got created because of the number of the tweets they made and how much they were retweeted and all of that. Of course, they played a role. Of course, they played a big, huge role in spreading information, right? Same for sexual harassment, same for rape, same for domestic violence. Those voices online played a big role. And here I would like to go back to the whole private versus public. And I will go back to your question, I didn't forget it. Private versus public. So the private sphere and the offline sphere is somehow controlled more by the taboos and what we can say and what we cannot say. We cannot talk about sex freely. We cannot talk about sexual identities. And of course we cannot talk about sexual harassment and rape, right? So the only place that was available for these activists and other people, victims, people who were subject to sexual harassment, they just found in the online sphere a place where they can share somewhat to a certain extent publicly, depending on their settings, without being censored the way they are censored in the offline sphere. And it picked up. And the Lebanese context is also special because we saw what was happening in other countries. We didn't have a revolution, we didn't have an uprising, and we're not gonna have. So we tried to replicate the online successes that happened in Egypt, that happened in Tunisia, and we went very strong into digital campaigning. We basically controlled the online sphere. What the bloggers talk about eventually became what the news, the primetime news, start with. And that is huge. And so this is, and that was actually what we used as to measure our success and impact, because of course you can measure it like using quantitative numbers, okay, number of shares, etc. But how do you actually measure the value of what you're doing? Once we, after a big campaign on domestic violence and marital rape, several 8 p.m. news, which is the primetime news, they started their introduction with the campaign that we were doing and the slogans that we were using and the actions that we actually later did offline. And we used all what we created online from our blogs and Facebook pages to actually archive and publicize even more. So then we said, oh, okay, so this works. This approach is helping us shift the discourse from the private to the public, and not only to the online public that is that my mom is not on, my father isn't on probably, and a lot of people isn't on. Remember, the internet penetration is 40%, so there are 60% that you're not actually reaching at all. But all of them have TVs, and they all listen to the 8 p.m. news. So it was somehow complementary to, not really complementary, it was actually a key factor to going into the offline, penetrating this sphere that's only controlled by traditional media. But then even these successful campaigns couldn't only stay online, and they at a certain point they made this move to offline. They did partnerships with already established organizations, and they started working on policy as much as we can. So we took the, okay, I will do your communication strategy for you and tell you what to do, and tell the people and tell your story, tell what you're, and I'm gonna share how you actually are meeting with the minister and talking about this, okay? I'm gonna organize a big protest, and we're gonna help you do that. We're gonna share, because their protest, when they used to call for it, 20 people would show up, but then they had this huge following base behind them, because several key people with important reach decided to join forces with them. So when these grassroots organizations and these non-governmental organizations joined forces and decided to create one offline event, it was a massive, massive, beautiful protest on February 14th. And it was huge, and we were talking about domestic violence. We were screaming marital rape in the streets of Beirut and that it should be abolished. So all that said, okay, justice is not being, what do you say, served? Victim of sexual violence, harassment, and rape are not yet accommodated, if you want, in the law, because first, as you said, there is a huge social pressure. We don't talk about this. Nothing happened. The honor of the family is at stake. So there is one. This is big. And even then, if you have a law that criminalizes rape and sexual harassment, if you can't solve this problem, you can't do anything. Two, you don't have laws. So let's say a rape victim goes to the police station. Other than you don't have law, you really don't have respect. We used to, and I'll tell you what do I mean. We used to chant in these protests that, okay, my husband raped me and I went to the police to file a suit, but then I was harassed by the police and then they sent me back to my husband. So this was our primary chant in this protest, which actually reflects the reality on the ground. There are no laws. Those who enforce the law are those who break it, okay? And no one is actually willing to do anything about it so far, because we are touching something untouchable, sex and taboo and like honor, shit like that. Well, I hope I answered the question. So we don't have any laws to protect and give justice to those who need it.
I think that's the recurring theme, the lack of laws. So can you just talk? I have a question that's a little bit off the subject, but could you? Because we spent a week talking about the You Stink garbage crisis. Could you tie in the specifically You Stink into Lebanon, and how does that play into what you're saying about Lebanon's the Lebanese context in digital activism, and how come he relates to?
Yeah. Okay. So the You Stink movement. Okay. So basically, we have garbage in Lebanon. It's been 7 months, you know all about it. We still have garbage. They're still everywhere. No problem. A lot of so several activists started protesting this online. 2-3 days later, we noticed that there are new Facebook pages that are under several names, several slogans, and several political affiliation, of course, and I mean, which is normal. Started talking more and more about this problem. Activists organized, and they organized into groups. You Stink, Badnan Hasib, Shab Yurid, many other pages. And they started this huge campaign online. And in record time to Lebanon, it is record time. I think in a month or so, the You Stink page was like, it had over 150,000, I think, likes. The reach was through the roof, and I'm talking qualitative numbers here. You would analyze the insights from their Facebook pages, and they do really have a huge reach. So these people took to offline, they rallied the masses online. They established their place online. If they would, anything they would share would go viral within the Lebanese online community. Anything, videos, press conferences, quotes, photos, everything, and they. Because they were so successful online, and that is very, very important. They had the communication arm. They had a very, very strong communication arm. They were able to sway the mainstream media. So now you would have a representative from the government and a representative from Justink, because they were as powerful. These people would reach millions, and the international media was so interested by Justink, because even though the context is different, I don't know if you know about the Uprising of Women campaign, but for example, Leila, the Justink reminds me a lot of it. They just appeared from like in a week, and huge reach, huge impact. Any request on the page would get thousands and thousands of replies.
I think this has to do. I think this also has to do with history, because Justink is a digital activist, is a digital campaign that's more recent. So it knew what to do because of the earlier campaigns. So we're sort of building off the history now. They've seen how it's been used before in other places, and so there's already a knowledge. They knew what to do, whereas that knowledge, like you said, one of the reasons why some of these campaigns took off is that people knew how to use social media, and more people are learning how to do that.
Exactly, and the people behind Justink campaigns, they know how to use social media brilliantly. They did a successful Kickstarter campaign. They put together a nice website, easy, but their main strength was Facebook. They were everywhere. I'm in France, and I have another community on my Facebook, and still they were everywhere. Same for people in. No, but seriously, this is major. Again, so when they decided to take to the offline presence, they succeeded also. A lot of people showed up to the protest. We've never seen protests like that. I mean, I was sitting and saying, okay, I'm booking a plane ticket and I'm going back to Lebanon. This is our revolution, okay? I was mistaken, but it was that big. And a lot of people agree that it is their online presence that gave this huge aura around them and this impact to the first month of their presence online. Of course, because I told you Lebanon is so special, all is gone now, and they're just another Facebook page with a lot of number of likes, but that's it. The offline presence diminished, but again, that's because of politics and Lebanon. That's completely different.
I was wondering if you were going to get to the politics of Lebanon, but we don't need to talk about that.
No.
I want to open it up to more questions. I want to open it up to more questions for the students. I was wondering, they read, what did you read for the Justink Ammar's piece about Lebanon? And they understand the sort of the internal politics behind the crisis and sort of what sort of political actions that are involved. Any other questions? We have more questions. What happened to you?
Me?
No, my student has violence, and she
You're muffling the mic, I guess.
just had to ask us. I need a car to skate. She fell down on a skateboard. It's okay. She's fine. I would wish there was a car accident. Sorry. Any other questions, you guys? I mean, is anybody with the Women to Truth group want to ask anything for next week? Anybody? Final sentiments. Thank yous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your time with us.
And for doing that work.
Yeah, thank you for doing the work that you do.
Thank you. Thank you, Leila.
Thanks, Abir. I really appreciate this. Has been really excellent, and we'll talk afterwards. I'm gonna stop it now and then.
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna stop the broadcast. Peace.